Wait, no, Corey, I gotta fix this. Okay, there. We fixed it. We're live. Hello,
Hey.
Corey.
Hi.
How are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing swell. I'm trying to pass the time in the dark times of the off season,
Isn't it the
which is
worst?
that hasn't even fully reached it yet because we're still, doing OTAs and mini camps and all that stuff, but
Isn't
there's just
it?
nothing going on.
Yeah, there's literally been nothing going on, hasn't there?
Yeah.
Like it's just the worst thing ever. Hold on, let me get the Oh, hello, Red. How are you? Um, let me just get the There we go. Look at that. Two Yeah, Fade Ennis says two goats on one screen. Two
Oh.
goats on one screen. Thank you, man.
Well, we don't have really a high bar set. Well, I guess that's a
That's a what?
indictment of other people who do this. I was about to say that's not really a high bar. I mean, it is a high bar because it's. Well, we don't have really. Sorry, I just started playing your video.
It's all good.
Um, I was just saying there's not a. What my point was is there's not a whole lot of Buccaneers YouTubers out there.
We're
So
yeah, we're like two of like the five who make videos on a semi-consistent basis.
yeah, yeah.
So and that's including the Buccaneers YouTube page themselves, like
Yeah, and the other ones out there are pretty good too. I feel like we're on the same plane, but basically what I'm saying is like nobody's really like it's not like a podcasting game where there's like 50 bucks podcasts out there. And then some who've been doing it for years. It's just like we're all kind of there. So I'm glad you consider us goats, but
not
it's
we're
still
not
young.
yeah, we're still fresh into this for the most part. We've only been doing this for like a year.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah, so we're just kind of chilling out today, Corey. Whatever we want to talk about, whatever people in the chat want to talk about, just kind of because like what you said, there's like nothing going on.
No.
There's literally nothing to talk about, at least in terms of recent news. There's just us hanging out, just talking about whatever. Fade says the year of Murphy's Law deserves an Oscar. So,
Well, if we
so
can get it on the silver screen, let's
yeah.
push it. But I doubt that's going to happen.
And then
So
Murphy's Law takes effect in Madden as well. So, just Murphy's Laws everywhere.
definitely all Madden teams I've taken control of have had Murphy's Law.
Yeah,
That's
seriously.
for sure.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, man. So, just what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I heard, and I mean, if you're just leaving the floor open, I
Yeah.
listened to the Locked On Bucks podcast this morning,
Okay.
and they brought up um, the Uber scandal, which I know that's like lingering out there.
Old news.
I
Old.
know it's old news. I know it's old news, but they brought up something, and I don't read Joe Buck's fan at all. Just I mean for my own reasons, but apparently they had come out and said that they are, according to their sources, they are anticipating a 1 game suspension for Jameis, which for me is like, okay, we can take that, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's against the Saints, which sucks, but let's be honest, any of those first 3 games, if there's any suspension, I mean, I would rather it just be the first one and then get it out of the way. So if that is indeed true, I feel like that's good news because the NFL likes to suspend players with if just someone says they did something without much proof. So if we get away with 1 game suspension and not 6 games like Ezekiel Elliott, then I guess I'm happy.
Yeah. No. It's interesting. I mean, honestly, I hope that who was it? Joe Buck's fan that said that.
Yeah.
I hope that they are wrong in the good sense. I hope there is no suspension.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I remember, what was it? I think when I talked about it this last live stream, we were talking about somebody had asked me like, "Oh, do you think James Winston's going to get suspended?" I said, at absolute worst, I hope he gets like 1 game, because like 1 game, it's like okay, manageable.
Yeah.
Like Fitzpatrick can come in for 1 game and like at least try. If it's like that's not season derailing. The four
Yeah.
games, you're out for a fourth of the year, or at worst 6 games, or you're out for more than a fourth of the year. That's horrible, and you're out for almost a third of the year at 6 games, and it's like oh crap. That's when you start getting into the territory of oh, this season's pretty much over. Like because
Yeah, and you don't want the season to be over before it gets going. And with especially those first three games, it's such a brutal like start to the schedule. If we don't have Jameis for any of those, like it's gonna be a tall hill to climb if we just cannot keep up. I mean, not that Fitzpatrick's automatically gonna lose for us because he went 2-1 when last year when he started, but you know, there's Fitzpatrick, but then there's Jameis, you know,
yeah,
as far as gamers and taking over games. So
it's a pretty big drop, I guess you could say, just overall raw ability. Like I'm sure Fitzpatrick at this point might be smarter in terms of overall game knowledge than Jameis Winston, but just in terms of raw ability, I think Jameis has him beat. You know,
oh, yeah.
and yeah, and it would just it'd be bad. It'd be bad, and everybody would just be sad. And
So you know, if that is true, I feel like okay, one game I can deal with, and also if since it's the first game, we can start preparing for that now. You know, like Ryan Fitzpatrick, he would know he's the starter going in. We'd have months to work on it and to game plan and figure out what we're going to do against the Saints. Now, if it was like Jameis playing and then suddenly got suspended in the middle of the season because of appeals, or he got hurt like last season and then Ryan Fitzpatrick is thrown in, then it's a lot. I'm a lot more nervous. But when you have, unless this team is coached by Lovie Smith again, if you have 2 months to prepare for a team, I think we're good.
oh my gosh, yeah, no, that's kind of what happened to the Cowboys last year. Whenever Ezekiel Elliott got suspended, was it happened right smack in the middle of the season. Cowboys were trying to get on this playoff run. They honestly, I really don't know if the Cowboys expected Ezekiel Elliott to get suspended or not. And when he did, it's like, okay, we just lost like one of the driving forces of our offense. And it would kind of be the same thing. Like, imagine if the Bucs are like 4-3. It's week 7, right? It's like, or whatever. It's like week 8. We're 4-3. Okay, we're kind of in that wild card race. Jameis Winston suspended like 4 to 6 games. It's like, crap. It would just be so bad because that ruins. You have a half a season of all right. Jameis Winston's our guy. It'd be just as bad if it'd basically be like he tore his ACL or something. Like not as bad obviously, but like you lose him for 4 to 6 games and you don't have your star guy, and then it's like, okay, Fitzpatrick, go, and Fitzpatrick's probably sitting there like, dude, I wasn't expecting to get into this year, and
well, I'll be interested in just speaking of the backups. I'll be interested in seeing. We've held on to Ryan Griffin for so long, and it's clear that the Bucs liked him, and some were even saying that had he not got hurt last year, Fitzpatrick wouldn't have even been on the team. And so I wonder what's going to happen there with Ryan Griffin. I'm interested in seeing if, like, okay, did we hold him for all this time so that he can eventually be a sufficient backup so we can dump Ryan Fitzpatrick, or are we going to get rid of both of them after this season? It's just a random thing that popped in my head thinking of Ryan Fitzpatrick. So
it's funny you say that because Fade Ennis said in the chat, he says, most realistic situation is Ryan Griffin torches the Saints week 1 with 500 yards and becomes the best NFL quarterback in history. That I wouldn't even know how to.
That's the most realistic situation.
Man. I mean, I wouldn't even imagine just us coming together and doing a week 1 review for that. Like, I wouldn't even know what to say. That'd just be ridiculous.
I don't know. I feel like I should quit YouTube at that point. That's just like
just give up. Just all right. There's nothing to even say about this.
Yeah, I don't even know. I just Fade can take over the channel, I guess. I don't know because that's something I would never see coming.
And then Garvey said, did he break any league rules? Talking in terms of Jameis Winston with the whole Uber incident. I guess I wouldn't say, like, obviously this falls into line with like legal troubles, and that goes hand in hand with league policies. Those things coincide together because if you break the law, chances are you're breaking a league policy all the same. Like that kind of makes itself, but like obviously, this is kind of in that territory of what would you call it? Like is it classified as like sexual assault or?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of like the same it's kind of a similar case like Ezekiel Elliott. They take that stuff very seriously, which they
Mhm.
should.
Right.
And so yeah, it. All depends on whether or not it happened or not. If it did happen, well then, yeah, Jameis Winston, he broke some league rules and he does deserve a punishment for that. But if he didn't, it all depends. Because right now, I think the latest that we've heard on it, Corey, is that like the reason it's taking so long is because neither side has conclusive enough evidence. Right, is what last I heard of it. So it's very interesting. It's just weird. The more it drags on, the more I think nothing's gonna happen. It's just kind of gonna go away eventually.
Well, let's
Um,
hope so.
yeah, that's what I'm. Well, yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I mean, not obviously not. If something did happen, then I hope it doesn't go away. But if you know what I mean? Like it's a very sticky situation.
Yeah, about the league rules thing, and this is really what's number one. I full-heartedly believe that there will be a strike in 2020, and it's because this is one of the many reasons, and it's because the league rules, so to speak, are so vague, and they give so much power to the commissioner that he can deem whatever league rules are. So like even if Jameis is completely innocent, then he still broke league rules simply because somebody accused him of it, and he shouldn't have been put in that situation because he is making the Shield look bad. So like anything that looks poor on the Shield of the NFL, they say that they can punish you for. So I think this is a direct result of the Ray Rice situation. And I know the guys on the Locked On Bucs podcast actually just talked about this too,
Mhm.
where Ray Rice was only suspended for like a game or two, and then video came out, and we all saw the video of him just completely knocking the woman out.
Mhm.
That's when the NFL came under huge fire because people were like, why didn't they suspend him more? Like they were protecting this abuser and all this stuff, but like the NFL didn't like they. It was hairy on whether or not the NFL had possession of that tape. So what they're trying to do is completely overcompensate for that, or it's like now an inkling of it's like a pendulum has gone the other way, and if there's just any type of accusation with minuscule evidence, then they're going to give you a suspension no matter what. So I think they're trying to protect themselves, and I think in the instance of Jameis, if they do suspend him, they're saying, okay, we can't see either way, but there's a possibility that somebody has videotape out there, so we're going to suspend him, and then we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, situations definitely have gotten way more. It gets complicated, man. Because like nobody really. I feel like at the end of the day, like unless there's like pure, just 100% proof, like the NFL kind of just has to go with what their, not with like what their gut says, but like they're gonna have to go with like, okay, well we're gonna have to play it super safe, um, in a way, because they're probably sitting there thinking as the league, they're like, well, something could have happened. um there's not enough evidence supporting you, there's not enough evidence supporting them, but something could have happened, so we're gonna you know give you a little something because something could have happened.
Well, and this is the issue with the NFL. I mean, it's not just with this stuff. It's like it's um, the catch rule. It's the concussion stuff. Every time there's a controversy, the
PEDs as well.
NFL, and the NFL goes just they swing the other way. They're like, okay, fine. If we have players who are killing themselves and getting CTE and having those concussions, we're going to protect our butts and we're going to change the rules basically so defenders can barely even touch each other because we're trying to protect our organization. And meanwhile, the old players are complaining about concussions, but now the young players are like, hey, we know what we signed up for, and now they're complaining about the new rules. So it's people view the NFL as this big bad corporation, and they kind of are, but you can kind of see where they're coming from here, and they're trying to protect themselves with these
I mean,
accusations.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're a gigantic corporation, and they're going to protect themselves as much as they possibly can,
Right.
at the expense of whoever it needs to be at the expense of. Like
Yeah.
executives are going to protect themselves. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
But moving on from that very serious, very very dark, not dark, but very very serious
Yeah.
topics. You know, somebody said, hold on, let me see. If the defensive line lives up to our expectations, we should be fine with a backup quarterback. So that's kind of saying to the point of, if our defense holds up, then we can't afford to play a backup quarterback like a Fitzpatrick or Griffin. I actually want to talk about Ryan Griffin for a minute. I want to talk about our third string quarterback for a
Yeah,
minute.
let's do it. It's
Um,
June. Let's do it.
yeah, for Ryan, yeah, I never really thought about it, but Griffin's been with us for what, 3 years?
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about it. And like, I never know why we keep him on because we never name him the backup. Like it's Mike Glennon and then it's Fitzpatrick,
Yeah.
and it's like, what are we doing with Ryan Griffin? I don't know. I don't know. Didn't he was from the Saints, right?
Yeah, he was on the Saints, and didn't we trade for him? I guess not if he was on the Saints. I guess we just claimed him.
Yeah, I guess
Um,
because I know I think we probably got him how we got Cameron Bray.
yeah. So like clearly they saw something in him, and that's why I said I was interested in seeing how he turns out because he was playing better than Fitzpatrick in preseason. Now that just be maybe because now knowing Fitzpatrick's personality, he tends to just kind of lays around a little bit and kind of rest on his laurels and doesn't really try really a whole
Yeah,
lot. It's like in
yeah.
the game, but Ryan Griffin was looking better than Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then Ryan Griffin got hurt, and so we had to keep Fitz. So I clearly Jason Light and the scouting department see something in Ryan Griffin to not only pick him up, but then to hold on to him in spite of having Mike Glennon and then in spite of having Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's not as common these days to have three quarterbacks on your roster, so he's taking up a roster spot, and so clearly they're seeing he's valuable enough to have that. So I don't know if it's because they're afraid to let go of him because they think they can trade him. Maybe they are thinking they could possibly showcase him in the preseason and then trade him or something. I don't know.
See,
Um,
for me, it's like I just don't. It's like we have him one more year on his deal, and then he'll become an unrestricted free agent or whatever it is. I just don't know what you do with him at this point because it's like you have Fitzpatrick who didn't look bad as a backup, and then you have Griffin. It's like what do you? It's like if at best if we trade him away, we get like a seventh, but we haven't seen enough. We saw one good preseason last year, and then not much before that. So it's like, and I don't. We've been carrying three quarterbacks for a while, for the past few years now,
yeah.
and I just don't know what you do with him because if you really, you re-signed Fitzpatrick for a reason, unless you, and honestly, I think it'd be kind of surprising if Fitzpatrick were to get cut at this point, in my opinion. Because did they give him guaranteed money or no?
Oh, I don't know his contract information, but I mean, I could see that they want to bring Fitz back. Now, so I was actually pretty harsh on Fitzpatrick, and not on YouTube, but like through Reddit and stuff like that last year, because I just did not think he was worth I thought it was kind of a waste of a roster spot, and I thought he was just fodder. But I didn't. In retrospect, looking back, he had such an enormous effect on Jameis when it comes to not getting overhyped. Like I really think that was Fitzpatrick that helped calm Jameis down. And if we remember, Jameis's big problem was he would get so amped at the beginning of games and he would start just so erratic. But then he got hurt and he had to sit back for a few games and watch how Ryan Fitzpatrick conducted himself in the huddle and was just so calm and cool. And then Jameis came back, and he was a different player in the first quarter. And I really think that was because of Fitzpatrick. So I feel like the Bucs are rewarding him to like they see the value he adds, being a backup, being the veteran to help mold Jameis. So maybe that's what they see. And let's be honest, Fitzpatrick, he's old. I mean, there was question whether or not he was going to come back this year. So maybe they're just thinking, hey, let's ride it out with three quarterbacks again, and then once Fitzpatrick moves on, we can reassess with Ryan Griffin, or we can just find somebody else. But I don't know. Only the Bucs know, I guess.
Yeah, and then just catching up to some comments here. Yes, it is a weird situation with our backup quarterback position. And then just looking up some comments here. Crippled says, hey, what's up, Crippled?
What's up?
Let me see. Pubert Janice Slurpenstein. That if that isn't one of the best names I've ever heard.
That is
Um,
amazing. That might be the
said
best name I've seen on YouTube.
said I watched Corey Draper's video. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Um, and then Arid Haynes says, "Are the Bucks in full pads this week?" I don't think they are. Not yet.
No, not until training camp. Well, they might have shells for,
I think they
if
have
I remember correctly, for mini camps.
shells.
But
Yeah, but I don't.
yeah,
I don't think they go
uh,
full pads until like I think July.
yeah, I don't think they do full pads until training camp.
Yeah, and then
I could, but that's just from my memory. That's horrible.
Mrbucsnation says, "Good up for the best and only Buck streamers on YouTube." Hey, there's a couple guys out there.
Yeah,
There's me, you. There's Buck What You Heard.
yeah,
There is Buckos Locker. Real Talk Perez. I think that's actually it. I think that's just
yeah.
the five
I
of
can't
us.
think of it. You named all the ones I know of.
Yeah,
So.
that's the only those you between you and those two. These are the only four I watch. And then this is actually funny. So I don't know if you saw this, but this is what Fade says, okay? Or Fade Ennis says, was I the only one who watched the franchise guy's video and was heavily offended on the Jameis hate? So to put you up to date, Corey,
Yeah.
there is this YouTuber who primarily does Madden. I can't remember his name. I think it's like the franchise guy or something. He has around 3,000 to 4,000 subscribers, and
Okay.
he is doing a series where he ranks every single team. And I think he put the Bucks at 24, something
Okay.
along those lines, or no, he might have put him at. I can't remember what they put him at, but I think it was like either 24, or like 28 or something. And he laid into Jameis so bad, it was ridiculous. And like basically all the stuff that we get hyped up about, he said was like overhype. And he's like, there, that's just, when you really break it down, they're not going to be that good. And I didn't watch the whole video because I was just like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But that brings up an interesting, not dynamic, I guess you could say, but it brings up an interesting thing just about us as fans is like, and I'm not saying this guy's right under any circumstances, but there are some times when you kind of have to catch yourselves
Mhm.
when like being excited. And okay, so Fade Ennis says he ranked us at 30th. So yeah, but do you feel it's like kind of justified in terms of like as like a fan base? It's pretty. Do you think it's more reasonable to get like overhyped about stuff and like obviously not to like an insane amount, or do you feel it's like, oh well, the Bucks have always sucked, so we can't exactly have great expectations. Like, in my opinion, it's like, do we as fans have the right to have like decent expectations for this team? Because
Yeah.
like I'm sure if you asked any of us or anybody in the chat, we'd all say like, oh yeah, Bucks probably gonna end up being like in the teens, at least this
Yeah.
year. But then you have people who say like, oh, 30s or whatever, and it's like oh, they're going to be like one of the third worst team in the league. It's like, do you think that like as us as Bucks fans we're overhyping this team, or do you feel it's like genuinely like, okay, yeah, this team is actually like starting to look pretty legitimate?
Yeah, so there's genuine overhype every single offseason. And I've fallen into the trap of really just like trying to think through it as logically as possible. I remember it was the season with the Greg Schiano, after Greg Schiano's first year. I think that first season we went 7-9,
Mm-hmm.
and in the second year, in my view, the Bucks had only gotten better. They filled a lot of holes. They like really retooled, and I got so upset because I don't know who it was. It was probably Pete Prisco or Mike Florio. Like those are the usual suspects as far as people who hate on the Bucks.
I
But
hate those guys.
they predicted like a 2-14 season, and I got so triggered. Like I was so upset. I like could not believe. I was like, how could they predict us down on a 2-14? We only got better. Like on paper, we only got better. And sure enough, we were 4-12 that year. We started 0-8.
Yeah.
So like,
the Bucks are a weird team though, because every time we do pretty decent, right? Or even at worst average, when everybody's like, okay, this is gonna be the time when we get things going again. Yeah, ever since '02, and it's like okay, yeah, we have a pretty decent year, and then just tank. And like when
Yeah,
I say tank, I mean we just hit bottom, man.
right.
Like, and it wasn't as bad this year. Like we didn't go 2-14, we went 5-11, but still, like it's like okay, expectations are pretty decent, and then just no, man,
Yeah.
can't do it. That's the Bucks are a weird team like that, you know.
They are, man, and it's been, I mean, yeah, it's been a lot of years of disappointment. So that said, you got to keep your expectations in check for sure. Now, on the other side of it is, I've gotten to a point where I don't, I don't watch any like national show. I haven't watched ESPN in years.
Hmm.
Like, I don't read articles on the Bucks that aren't written by local writers because there's something. Okay, so I listen to a radio show up here in Atlanta, as a sports talk radio show, and one of the guys has this thing that he calls the Peter King theory, and it's basically that Peter King knows more than you do about the NFL as a whole, about each and every team. He knows more than you do, except your team, because Peter King only has so much time in the day, like you do. He spends all of his time on 32 teams. You spend all your time on one team. So if anything Peter King says is going to be, it should be taken with a grain of salt. Anything you see on ESPN, there's a lot of Winston hate out there, by the way, just in general right now that I'm seeing and reading headlines of. And it's because people are either trying to be hot takey, or a lot of times what these guys do is they just kind of, well, let's look at the Bucks over the past 15 years. They've always disappointed. Okay, great. They'll disappoint this year. It's a safe bet to say that.
Hmm.
So you can kind of see where people are coming from is like, hey, we haven't shown anybody we're anything yet. We had a lot of hype, national hype last year. And of course, we only win 5 games.
Yeah.
So why would anybody who doesn't follow this team closely predict us to do well? Even if we have legitimately gotten better. It's one of those off seasons where we have filled holes. We've gotten better in every single circumstance except for maybe safety. And then, so logically, no, we should not be number 30 overall team, but there's a history.
Yeah.
So
I think what
we
it,
have to take both opinions into account and where they're coming from. And yeah, we could get too far high, they could get too far low. It's probably somewhere in the middle.
yeah, and it's funny, dude. I made the horrific mistake last year of, really not horrific, but like, it's like what you said. Like sometimes expectations get too lofty and stuff gets too in, things get too high in terms of expectations, and just this past season when we went 5-11, it's like, oh man, you just set yourself up for disappointment. I'm not that isn't to say like oh, well, you should just expect the team to do bad. No, if you think the team's going to do good, then that's fine. Like you should expect the team to do good as a fan. It's just like, yeah, like what you just said, like that, like people who don't follow the team are gonna look at the past and say, well, they've always haven't been great before, in recent
Yeah.
history, so why would they be good now? That's just kind of why people have been like that lately.
Yeah. Well, and I'm reading here that Fade said that the guy said Jameis is worse than Jay Cutler, but you know what the difference between Jay Cutler and Brett Favre is? Brett Favre won. Like Brett Favre made the crazy passes. I mean, but they were very similar quarterbacks. It's just that Favre was on a winning team, and whether it's because of him, because he was better than Jay Cutler, maybe, but honestly, they were so similar, and I feel like Jameis Winston is in this same category where you have these quarterbacks like Jameis who make really dumb decisions, and sometimes he lucks out, sometimes he doesn't. And it's going to be up to Jameis to take it from the Jay Cutler comparisons to the Brett Favre comparisons. And the only way he's going to do that is if he takes this team to the playoffs and he wins.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of what anybody's saying out there, nobody's right, nobody's wrong until we see how it plays out. Can Jameis win? We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. He's going to have a few more years to do it. I think he'll make his second contract, unless he just does pull a Jay Cutler, I guess.
Yeah, and then to take let me see. So Vegas has this down for 6 games this year. Thoughts? Man, Vegas always has this to do bad, don't they?
And they're usually right.
Well, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just Vegas stuff.
I would take the over. I really would. but I could be.
See, I'm bad at making predictions. I literally every single thing I predicted last season was dead wrong.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm not taking my chances this year. But let me actually see here. People's predictions is always wrong. We're better than our record. Remember the whipped kicks and horrible line play? We lost a ton of close games. That's true, man. Hey, just like if you just like the Murphy's Law video, if you guys
Yeah,
want to
all
go
this
check
sounds
that
really
out.
familiar.
Yeah, if you guys actually want to go check out Corey's video, he actually like detailed in great detail all the losses that the Bucs had, and just what went wrong for this team. So if you want to go check that out, go check it out. If you really break it down, that's the worst thing about the Bucs is that when you really break it down, it just makes you so much more mad because it's like, wow,
Yeah.
if only two more plays went our way, or if like a fumble literally didn't bounce the wrong way, or a referee didn't fall over at the end of a game,
Yeah.
we would have won. That's the difference between winning and losing a game. It's like, are you kidding me?
Well, and the good teams overcome those. Sorry if there's a bunch of noise you're hearing, but
It's all
the
right.
good teams overcome those, and that's a fair point. Like hey, every team has bad luck, et cetera, et cetera. But what I gather from all of that, all the bad luck we had, and all the certain instances where we were 3-7 in one-score games, that's the kind of thing that typically goes back the other way and finds equilibrium. So like the reason I still have a lot of hope for this current team, even with the current coaches and the current players, is there is still a difference between last year's 5-win team and Greg Schiano's 4-win team, or Raheem Morris's 6-win team, or whatever it was. The reason is because those teams got blown out and it wasn't even close in their losses. But this team, they really kept it close in a lot of games and should have won a lot of them. It just didn't bounce their way,
I,
just for whatever reason. And so when that happens, it's like, okay, we have the talent. We just need things to go our way. And maybe that's just all it takes to push us from a 5-win team to an 11-win team.
and I definitely think like even towards a little bit, a little bit into the Lovie Smith era and a little bit towards the end, especially towards the end of the Lovie Smith era, and like a little bit to start in Dirk Cutter's time. It's like these
Yeah.
you would just feel so deflated, like just like it's like okay, this game isn't even worth watching. Like that's how you would feel with these Bucks games. It's like okay, yes, it would start as a blowout, but then the Bucks would bounce back. Whereas in years prior, it's like, okay, we're getting blown out, and then we stay blown out. Like
Yeah.
there's no fight in that team, be it because of lack of trust in the coach or just because of lack of ability or
Yeah.
whatever. But this year, yeah, like what you said, this year is a little bit different, kind of a
Well,
different
this
feel
team,
to it.
this roster has a different attitude than those rosters in the past. I mean, if you just take in the differences in attitude in the locker rooms, man, we have guys like Quan and Jameis who want to win so bad. Like they hate losing. We
Yeah.
just didn't have those guys during the Schiano years. I mean, even during the Lovey years, even though Jameis was here for those, like you just didn't have a locker room that hated losing as much as these guys do. So
Yeah.
I really think that will be the difference.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a more quieter locker room, like kind of like and like obviously like locker room fights or whatever isn't a good thing. But I
Yeah,
mean, when the whole situation last year with Chris Baker happened where he jumped off sides, and like
yeah,
Quan and Jameis and all of them were like, "Hey, dude, why don't you care about this? Like, what's
yeah,
and because Baker seemed like he didn't care in the locker room, and they called him out on it. That kind of accountability was something we didn't have with guys like Jameis and Quan. I think that's what makes guys like that so valuable, and I think that's what's going to earn them. That's one of the reasons why that's going to earn them their second contract. Is Jameis going to be the only guy who's earned a second contract with the Bucks?
he will be the first.
Quarterback wise, did
The
Josh
first
Freeman?
quarterback.
Because Josh Freeman had his fifth-year option picked up, but that was it, right?
I think so. Yeah, Freeman did not make a second contract.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy to think about. I was actually I was just doing research for this series that we're doing on the channel. It's like the greatest Buccaneers of all time. And for quarterback, I picked Doug Williams, and then I was doing the research, and I was like, oh, I wonder how many games Doug Williams played, and he played in however many. But and I started noticing like, okay, he only lasted 4 years. Okay, this quarterback only lasted 4 to 5 years. Wait a minute, every quarterback's only lasted 4 to 5 years, and it just
Yep.
doesn't go well. Um, But let me actually see here. Hold on. So, what do you guys think of Cutter giving up play calling? I hope it helps, as hopefully we will focus on being a head coach and not an offense coordinator. Okay. Ziggy. So, did Dirk Cutter give up his play calling?
I haven't heard that.
Because the latest I had heard on it, and this is in regards to Todd Monken, was the latest on that was that Dirk Cutter had given up play calling and like play. What was it? I wrote it down. He'd given up play scripting in practice.
Right. Yeah.
But that was the latest I had heard about it. It was actually an article by Jenna Lane from ESPN. She had wrote that. Um, it was like first thing on the article. Dirk Cutter is still going to be calling plays for his third year.
Yeah.
So I don't think, unless something has changed, I don't think Dirk's going to be giving up play calling. But do you feel he should, or do you feel that, because honestly, as of right now, we have no idea. Like, for all we know, Todd Monken could be a significantly bad play caller.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. We don't know.
Like, we have no idea. So it's kind of weird. Like, I feel like a lot of people assume that, like, the reason that would be such a benefit to the Buccaneers is because it'll divide up that responsibility for Dirk Cutter, because he won't have to focus as much as being an offense as calling plays and running the team. But it's just it's one of the reasons we have him on the team. Like,
Right.
it's. I remember, I think it was Trevor Sikkema of the Pewter Report said on Twitter one day, whenever somebody was asking him about it, saying like, "Oh, why doesn't he give up play calling?" I think Trevor Sikkema said, like, if he gave up play calling, there would literally have been no reason to keep him in the first place.
Yeah.
Because if he isn't calling plays, then he will have failed as a head coach, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, he's admitting that he's a bad play caller and a bad head coach, essentially, right? So, like, I think that would be the only reason
Well,
that. Mhm.
yeah, sorry, just like thinking through. So I was a big proponent of, like, I was saying it last year, like Dirk should give up play calling, but really the reason behind that is not because he's a bad play caller. It's because he has so much on his plate as a head coach. So if he's not giving up calling plays, at the very least, he's giving up a lot of his responsibilities that were taking his attention away. So this is kind of like the next best thing, I think, of giving Monken like complete. It's not in-game control, but it's Sunday, or it's Monday through Saturday control of speaking into the offense, writing up plays, and being there with the offense. So now Dirk is still heavily involved, and those two are going to have a lot of input to give each other. And Monken, I think I heard, is going to have some input during the games too. We'll be able to make suggestions. So to me, it's like, if he's not going to give up play calling, it's at least the next best thing. And I really am hopeful it's going to work for the better all the way around. Like, I'm hopeful it even helps Dirk in his in-game management, like timeouts and all that stuff, which I feel like every head coach struggles with, but
Yeah. And then
new ones. So
and then just to comment here, just to catch up on some comments here, Andy says hello, Andy, from both me and Corey. And like what you just said, just to touch up on that, is I recently just talked about the whole Todd Monken, what can he provide, because basically what essentially has happened now is Todd Monken's gonna be running practices for the most part. He'll be scheduling these plays, and he'll be promoted to full-time offensive coordinator. And tight ends coach Ben Steele said, like, it's awesome to have him here around, because he's going to be able to add another set of eyes and just add input that I might not be able to give everybody, because I think Ben Steele said, I can't coach up every single guy. So to have somebody else there who can say, hey, do this, or hey, do that, that information is invaluable to certain guys, and it might make the difference between, like, somebody making a roster and somebody not making a roster. Something, not just stuff like that, but like it always helps, it always helps to have, like, another opinion there. And Todd Monken now has the ability to go to all the positions on offense, whereas before he was stuck as not stuck, but he was a wide receivers coach, so he was only tied to the wide receivers. and he's basically Jameis's um like he's in charge of helping Jameis out a lot now as well, from what I gathered from it, because Jameis Winston, I think, said in a quote in the ESPN article, like, oh, Monken's one of my favorite coaches here, and actually just recently in this past earlier on in this offseason, Todd Monken was talking about his first message to Jameis, which was saying, like, it's okay, you don't have to try so hard,
Yeah.
because like what you were commenting on earlier, it's like Jameis would come into these games and he's so. I think the pressure was getting to him a little bit, because it's like he comes in and he's so like ready to go, and he's like,
Yeah.
okay, let's go, to the point where it's like, dude, Jameis, maybe calm down a minute, dude, because like like what you said, he was being erratic, and he was like kind of freaking out a little bit, and
Yeah.
so that's kind of I'm interested to see what happens, because if Todd Monken's first message to Jameis is like, dude, just calm down, it's okay, like we might see a more calm and composed, cooler Jameis, and that'd be kind of scary to see.
Well, and this is really feeding into the hype, and you know me, I'm all about not being emotional about things, but sometimes you just can't help it as a fan. I was so encouraged by how Jameis played those last 6 games. Even watching through them again for doing my last video, like he always has his ups and downs, always makes his boneheaded plays. But man, he is such a gamer, and he learns from his mistake, and you can see the maturity going. You could see if you just watch last year from game 1 to game 16, like his maturity and his ability to learn to stop being so erratic. And I think he's coachable. And this is the things that, like, the things you want to, they're the intangibles that you look for in a quarterback. And that's why I still have faith in Jameis while these people are bashing him and calling him Jay Cutler, is because they haven't watched as closely as we have and seen the development and growth in Jameis. And he was a different quarterback at the end of last year than he was at the beginning. And I really think a lot of it was that injury and him having to sit back for a little bit. And
Yeah,
I think it clicked with him. So
I was just about to say, yeah, I think that injury, Jameis took that time to like take a couple games off and just sit back for a minute, because like he's been the guy from minute number one, where it's like, okay, Jameis Winston, all right, go, and he hasn't really had an opportunity to just kind of sit back for a second and watch just stuff develop before his eyes. He's been in the front lines this whole time.
yeah,
And I think that injury, not just the fact of just the injury being in itself can like change your psyche on how you feel about and how you deal with certain situations, but just the ability to, like what you said earlier, he was able to sit back for a couple of games and watch Ryan Fitzpatrick go and learn from that, and that's probably one of the main reasons that the Bucs say, like, oh, okay, Fitzpatrick, we should probably bring you back, because
yeah,
that, like what like, and you said earlier that it's like, oh, Fitzpatrick, he's more like riding on his laurels, and he's more calm and just relaxed,
yeah,
and I think that's something that Jameis, obviously maybe not to the point of Ryan Fitzpatrick, but that's something like Ryan Fitzpatrick could like teach him, like, okay, it's okay to relax before,
yeah,
like you don't have to like try, because a lot of people have told me before, like Jameis, especially in his pre-game speeches, he tries too hard to like
yeah,
he tries too hard in his pregame speeches, like like the eat a W, yeah, like stuff like that. And he always tries to make it like people have told me, like, he always tries to make it about like one line, or like he always tries to like, it's like giving a speech, and he always tries to have a strong conclusion or something.
yeah. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but was that EW speech, like, was that right before we put him on the shelf? Because I feel like the backlash that he got from that pregame speech, I don't know if I saw him do any more pregame speeches after that. I could be wrong, but
I think it was right before he got put on the shelf. I know I will never forget Deshaun Jackson's face in the background of just pure like, what is happening right now. But
yeah,
that's kind of what people mean when they say, like, okay, Jameis needs to chill, and it's like, go
yeah,
out there, just give like we never see like Quan Alexander gives passionate speeches, Levante David, Gerald McCoy, all the leaders of this team, but like, and that's, I'm not saying that Jameis gives bad pregame speeches, but what I mean by that is like, Just kind of like changing it to where it's like stop trying to have like this like gimmick with your pregame
Yeah.
speech. You know, it's
Well, honestly, and sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're
like,
good.
I would rather have someone who is a 10 and I have to pull them back than somebody who's a 1 and I have to push them forward. You know
Oh,
what I'm saying?
oh yeah, definitely.
So like that, and the most recent example is Josh Freeman, who was just so whatever, man. Like that was his attitude, very quiet guy.
I'm just saying, Josh Freeman never had a pregame speech that turned into a meme, so that's free.
Yeah,
That's like franchise quarterback written all over Jameis. You know, he's
yeah.
he's turning into a meme. You know, I mean, you know who else is a meme? Jay Cutler, or not Jay Cutler,
Well,
Joe Flacco. Joe
yeah.
Flacco's a meme, and guess what? He won a Super Bowl. So you know, I don't. Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls, and he's like a
You know
great
what?
NFL meme.
Oh, hey, and the Peyton Manning face with the head cover, whatever he was wearing.
Yeah. Hey, franchise quarterbacks bring out memes. So
Yeah, there you go.
you know,
Super Bowl confirmed.
if you need any more proof, there it is. And then just to talk more on this is Young Deezy says smash that like button. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and like it. And anyway, Fade says the reason this year will be different is we care more about the players. We care more about players. Wait, what? What does this say? The reason this year will be different is we care more about players. Will we went from bringing in a Chris Baker attitude to a Bo Allen attitude? Oh, okay.
Uh,
So we're bringing in more players who like care more. So like
yeah.
from being a Chris Baker to a Bo. Yeah, Chris
100%.
Baker. Oh my gosh. What about Chris Baker?
Oh man, Chris Beji, have you seen all the videos he'd been posting? He'd been posting on Twitter during the
With the
Stanley
cap,
Cup.
yeah, with the Capitals. Oh, it
Yeah,
makes me sick.
what a douche.
It makes me sick. Like if you ever want to see the kind of guy that Chris Baker is, just look at his Twitter for like 5 minutes and you'll think, wow, I really hate Chris Baker.
He's the worst.
You know, and Fade also follows that up with saying it's all about chemistry and will. Um,
We had the chemistry in the will last year, but
well,
some things
this
happen.
this year I think it's kind of different because you did have a couple of guys who just flat out didn't care, like your Chris Bakers, and I'm sure there were a couple other guys who just it's like oh
Yeah.
it's like okay, who cares? These guys who come from like it's hard, it's and as a player I'm sure it's hard to go from like being on a playoff team or being a Super Bowl team to going to a team that is still trying to find its legs. It's just all about how you handle that situation. Certain players that we brought in who were on playoff teams and whatnot didn't handle those situations well, and others have handled it well. And it's all about how players handle the situations that they're in. And Chris Baker's a douche, and and that's all. If that's the one thing that you can draw from this live stream is that Chris Baker is a douche.
Yeah, I think we
Um,
all agree on that.
yeah, and then let me see, Andrew Hall. Do you watch a lot of NBA basketball, Corey?
I hate the NBA. I just
I
can't stand it.
I don't like it as a league. I think it's a bad league. But
I do.
Andrew
I,
Hall said,
I looked at it. I think the season's too long. I think the postseason is too long, and okay. So I live in Atlanta, right?
mhm,
I know some Hawks fans, and every time I'm just like, why? They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to make the championship. Even if they make the playoffs, half the league makes the playoffs, which is ridiculous. And then it's going to be Golden State and Cleveland. Like you just
yeah,
know already before the season even starts. So why even bother watching the games? That's
yeah.
just anyway.
So anyway, Andrew makes the joke saying LeBron can't carry basketball teams anymore. Let's see if he can carry the Bucks. Eat a W. Remember that was a thing like a couple years ago. They were talking about how LeBron James is gonna come play tight end for the Cleveland Browns or the Dallas
I would
Cowboys.
take.
That's what it's like being in this part of the off season. Like that is what it is like. We are talking about LeBron
Yeah.
James in
Yeah.
the NBA, man. And then Brandon Cortez says it's all those inspirational speeches he listens to pre-games. Hard Knocks outed him.
Well, I don't know. I like that he's so motivated, and I like that he listens to the inspirational speeches. I think it is a maturity thing, and I think he's still learning. Remember, Jameis is still younger than a lot of the rookies that came out last year. So he's still learning.
He's
And
23, right?
yeah, 22 or 23,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So the inspirational speeches are fine, and also even his pregame speeches and getting hyped up. It's just he's such an emotional guy, and and we saw this with Mike Evans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mike Evans, his like first year or two, one of the big knocks on him is, man, he would just get so frustrated on the field. You could tell he'd get frazzled at the smallest thing. He would always call for a flag whenever he didn't get the ball. Like, he was just so emotional. And then finally he matured, and he was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. And he's been great since then. Aside from the Saints game last year, with both he and Jameis really showed their immaturity.
They both kind of relapsed there for a
Yeah.
minute, you know, in a very
They're,
bad way.
they're both emotional and passionate guys. And when you're an emotional person, you have to learn how to rein in those emotions and use them for good and not let them take over you. And it's hard to do. So
Yeah.
I really think Jameis is on his way to overcoming that and really being able to use it.
Oh,
So
yeah. Then our Red says if we have a winning record and dominate against these NFC teams, we have a real potential to make the Super Bowl. There's no doubt about that. Just look at who we're playing against.
yeah,
And yeah, just comment on that, dude. NFC is so much more. Like, what's your thoughts on the NFC versus the AFC? Because in my opinion, the NFC is just an insanely superior conference to the
oh yeah.
AFC, and
Well, you know,
and that's not even biased. Just looking at the
yeah,
teams, like you could realistically, except for like maybe a couple of teams in the NFC, like most of these teams could make the playoffs,
yeah,
like
yeah.
like
It's
easily.
it's something that ebbs and flows every couple of years. It goes back and forth, and yeah, definitely the NFC has like really become the dominant conference. I wish we were in the AFC right now.
Oh, it'd be yeah. Like everybody always makes the joke, like, oh, what if we were in the AFC East, or
Yeah,
with the like, what if us in New England swap places and we were playing the Bills, Dolphins, and
oh
Jets, and
my gosh.
it's like, well,
Well,
then that would be a
we did lose to the Bills, but we did beat the Dolphins and the Jets. So I
yeah.
guess
So hey, there
okay.
we would have done fine. Matt Ziggy says thoughts on how Justin Evans will fare this year.
Justin Evans. I really hope he has a step up and doesn't have a sophomore slump, because we need him, honestly, since we didn't really get much help in the safety category. It's his job to lose, and I hope he steps up because he looked awesome last year, and I'm really excited for him, and I'm trying to rein that back a little bit. I'm a big Justin Evans fan, so he's a
Then
ball hawk.
yeah, and like wait, yeah, I think a lot of people, not a lot of people, but um, just talking about the safety position real quick, if there was a position, I guess you could say, that the Bucs didn't address this offseason, it would have been safety. Um, because a lot of people say, oh, the Bucs should have taken Derwin James instead of Vita Vea, and then we would have had no holes. And it's
Yeah,
like, okay, well, Vita Vea is a beast, so like he's literally a monster. But just to talk, like, I think that it's not necessarily. I don't think that the team themselves think that safety is as big a hole as we do as fans,
yeah.
because they really like Chris Conti. They they like Chris Conti. Okay, I can see the look of just disappointment, Corey. Do you
they
not like?
they like Chris Conti. I wouldn't say they really like Chris Conti.
Do you not like Chris Conti?
I like Chris Conti fine. I think he gets a really bad rap in Tampa. I think he's a solid player. He's gonna give up big plays, but I mean, he's basically a C+ player. But
That is literally the perfect way to describe Chris Conti as a C
yeah,
plus player. But like, they like Chris Conti. I don't know why they don't start Keith Tandy. Whatever. They like Justin Evans, which we all like Justin Evans, and I think that's kind of like he's the guy in the safety position.
yeah.
Just to talk more about Justin Evans. So I feel it's Justin Evans going to be on one side. I honestly think it's going to be Chris Conti on the other side. And
Probably to
then,
start out with, at least.
yeah, and then you have guys like Jordan Whitehead, Godwin. I want you to try and pronounce this guy's last name. Okay. Do you know who I'm talking about? The undrafted safety from Northwestern.
Oh yeah.
If you can just look it up real quick,
Uh,
because I've literally been trying to pronounce it for
I've
like
never been
I,
able to. Hold on a second.
I've been trying to pronounce it for a month and a half, and I still can't do it. And people tell me how to say it all the time, and I just never get it right. Um, but like I said, you have Jordan Whitehead, who a lot of people feel that they could like. A lot of people liked T.J. Ward as well, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But you know, did you look up his name?
Yeah, do you want me to try it real quick?
Yeah, try real quick.
Yeah. Igwebuike?
I always say Ijwe Buik, and
Sure.
I don't get it right. Like Igwe Ig
Igwebuike? I don't know.
Igwe Buik. I don't know. I think you got the Igwe bar. Igwe. I don't know. Igwe Buick.
Yeah. There you go.
So you have him, who a lot of people. It was actually weird because NFL.com projected him to be like a third round pick, which was weird. It makes you think like, okay, it's either NFL.com's insane or something horrifically wrong is, horrifically bad went wrong. But like,
Yeah.
you have him, you have Justin Evans, you have Chris Conte, you have Jordan Whitehead, you have Keith Tandy. Do you feel they should bring in another safety? Because there's still some names out there.
I definitely thought they should have, but the thing about the safety position and really why I'm just not worried is because my philosophy for the longest time, or at least it's not my philosophy, it's the one I've always bought into, is that you build a team from the inside out. And I really think that once you have a really good, solid defensive line, that does wonders for your secondary. I think I've said it on here before. I've definitely said it on my live streams that, like, because of what we did to our defensive line and the awesome linebackers that we have, our front seven is going to make the secondary look much better than they actually are. That is, if they live up to their potential and don't get hurt, etc. But I think that's what the Bucs are going for there. I think that's the philosophy they're taking, and I mean I think it showed on draft day when they picked Vea over Derwin James. So
Yeah. And then just kind of as a last note here is we're about to be going for an hour, man. Holy crap! This is the longest stream we've done together.
Is it? I feel like we've done an hour before, maybe close to an hour.
Yeah, I think we have two. And then just kind of for the last point here is, Steven says this offseason feels so long. Actually, Igwebuike. Igwebuike, I think. I don't know.
10 minutes of us just trying to pronounce it.
Igwebuike. Anyway, so for a final note here is I want to talk about Ronald Jones real quick. So
Okay.
Killer says that Ronald Jones, he sees Ronald Jones as more of a Kareem Hunt more than an Alvin Kamara. If you had to give a situation for Ronald Jones, like what kind of player he would compare to in terms of like just overall like running back comparisons, like who would you compare him to and why? Not and I know like guys like Jamal Charles and stuff like that, like people have already made those comparisons, but I mean like in terms of like a rookie coming on and having just immediate success in some way, shape, or form,
Right.
and like the kind of the path that they take, because like whereas Kareem Hunt, his success came right away and stayed relatively consistently throughout the year. Kamara came on a few games in. Do you see Ronald Jones kind of having immediate success, or do you think they're going to try and work him into a committee, like much like what the Saints had done with Kamara and with Martin, or do you see him more as like he's not really comparable to Kamara because Kamara is more of a receiving back, whereas Ronald Jones we don't know yet.
I do. Yeah. I don't see the Kamara comparison other than his size. And I am not qualified to be able to get player comps probably, but I'm trying to think of somebody who reminds me of him just in a little that I've seen of him. And I'm having a hard time just because, I mean, you and I mean, we've had a history of we've talked about this, of me being kind of iffy on Ronald Jones. I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not I think he was a good pick. I'm trying to kind of build up my hope and my hype for him, but I do think where they're going with this, I do think they like Peyton Barber a lot. So I really expect to see a 50-50 split until Ronald Jones can prove that he deserves to be on the field more. Maybe that happens in training camp or preseason. Maybe it doesn't. I am very intrigued to see how he looks early on. I think they kept Peyton Barber, and I think they re-signed Charles Sims for a reason. I think they're going to do a true committee. So
whenever I saw the Charles Sims re-sign, I was like, you know, I for me it's different. Like I really like Peyton Barber as well, but I'd kind of see it more as like kind of a 75 or 70% Jones, 20% Barber, 10% Sims, like kind of that committee
Yeah.
where it favors more in favor of Jones. That might happen later on down
Okay.
the line, but I
Yeah.
I definitely could see the reasoning of like, okay, it's going to be Jones, Barber, and Sims because, like you said, they re-signed him for a reason.
Yeah.
They like Charles Sims. He's that's one of Jason Light's guys. You know, it's one of the first people Jason Light ever drafted. People forget that Charles Sims is a former third-round pick. Like, you know, he's one of Jason Light's guys, man. So like, you figure that they might use him in a certain way. Maybe they also feel that like, okay, well, at least until we know what's going on with Ronald Jones's pass catching ability and whatnot, we'll have Charles Sims there just in case.
Yeah.
But
Maybe.
but it kind of sucks because like I think me and you have talked about this before, where it's like we telegraph what we're gonna do basically on
Yeah.
offense,
Yeah.
and it sucks, and it's like, well, crap, this doesn't help at all because now it's gonna be like, oh, Charles Sims is out there, it's gonna be a pass play, you know, and I hope they don't do that. I hope they don't do that, you know. I hope they try and figure out a way to get Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones at least sometimes catching passes, you know, just to keep stuff unpredictable, you know.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think you said last year like you could just call it. Like I think you said last year like so and so's on the field. All right, it's gonna be a run play, you know. It's like, oh, that guy's on the field. Okay, like it's gonna be a pass.
Yeah, as long as we mix it up in a way that it's not predictable, I don't care what percentage we give anybody. Because I like Peyton Barber a lot, and I, uh, I think you can do fine with a committee back. I think Philadelphia did fantastic with their committee backs. So like, it's not something I'm too concerned about, as long as they, fall forward and get 4 yards of carry, like just collectively, it's good. And I think they're capable of it. So.
All right.
But hey, I've actually got to head out now, so
Yeah,
I think it's good times.
I was just about to wrap up the live stream. So, Corey, do you have any final words before we head out here? And actually, real
Sure.
quick, before you say that, I want you to comment in the chat. For everybody who's watching, the 15 of you that are watching, I want you to go subscribe to Corey, the Play Reaction. He actually just recently did a in-studio video of Murphy's Law and everything that went wrong with the Buccaneers past season. You know, he went in depth, looked at all the games and whatnot, specifically like missed kicks, fumbles bouncing the wrong way, referees falling over. Corey talks about all of that, so definitely go check that out if you want a more in-depth look at what went wrong for that season, as well as just kind of overall tips on how to play fantasy football, how to get into the NFL, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun stuff. And Corey does live streams every single Wednesday at 9 p.m.
That's how it is right now. Yeah, 9
Right.
p.m.
So stay tuned for those as well. And Corey, what are your final words?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, nothing really to say other than, let's hold on and pray that no players get injured during mini camps like Hunter Henry, and no suspensions happen like Julian Edelman and all that. But guys, thanks for subscribing, those who have, and be on the lookout for. I have my next video. Hopefully, will be done by the end of this month. I'm trying to do once a month. I was actually supposed to film it on Friday, but a scheduling conflict happened. So, hoping to shoot my next highly produced video this Friday, and it's going to be a kind of an off-season evergreen type of topic, but it's one that I feel like is hot button amongst Bucs fans. So keep a look out for that. And like James said, I am trying to do live streams every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Follow me on Twitter at the Play Reaction, and that is every week I will give an update as to when the live stream is happening. So if you're ever confused, it'll be there. And I'm even on Instagram too. I'm trying to do a little bit more on Instagram, but it's hard because that's also my actual job for a company. So I have a lot of accounts that I'm trying to juggle. But anyway, yeah, hit subscribe for me, and follow me on Twitter, and we can talk more like this. But it'd just be me and you guys in the chat, and sometimes James if he wants to join. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
I think like 90% of our Twitter interactions are either like what is it? It's like we either like each other's tweets or we just like comment on like funny like NFL memes that we repost, something along those lines. But yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, go check out the play reaction. Corey Draper, he's great. Does Buck stuff. It's like there's only like 5 of us out there that do Buck stuff anyway. So subscribe to all the Bucks anyway. So thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, we will see you in the next live stream or video. But until then, goodbye for now, guys. See ya.